Hello, everyone. This has been a great day. I um I wanted to share something with you that is just kind of my masterwork of the end of 2016. And it all kind of just clicked into place today for me. I almost recorded this video last night, and I am really glad that I didn't because I think yeah, I attended Andrew Martin's soul expansion group today, and just so many more little bits clicked into place. If you don't know Andrew Martin, I would definitely recommend looking him up. He's amazing. And I did a meditation last night that just even more things clicked into place. And I just feel like this information has been waiting, kind of brewing for a really long time, ever since I very first started getting into understanding the world through frequency. Because music to me has been a window into understanding how energy works, and I just want to share that understanding with you. And I just tried recording this video, and it was very confusing and a little bit discombobulated. That's a fun word. So I'm going to try this again, and I think I'm going to make it into two parts because there's just so much information, and now I want to explain the understanding, and I want to explain how that applies. So um, if this resonates with you, I would love for you to listen to part two. So this is going to be part one of the octave pattern and the major chord pattern, and how these apply to energy and how they work. So this first one is just going to be explaining octaves and major chords on an energetic level. So here we go. First, we'll start talking about octaves. So if you don't know music too well, a good way to visualize this is to think about color. So we all kind of know the rainbow and how, it goes red, orange, yellow, green, blue, purple, and it's got this progression of colors. And, that's split up into lots of different numbers of things. But it always cycles back to the same point over and over again, right? So if you think of like on Photoshop, or somewhere, you're going to have a color wheel here, and then on the side you have like a scale, right? And that goes up and down. And so these colors are going to be your kind of um, different points. It can be like, oh, I want to choose red, and then red can be really light red, or it can be really dark red, right? So the way that this works energetically is you're going to have a spectrum, and all energy, all over, always, any manifestation of energy is part of this kind of grand scale of the speed of the frequency. So we have red. Red is vibrating. We have like some middle tone red, it's going to be vibrating on a very specific frequency. And then we go up through the rainbow: red, orange, yellow, green, blue, purple, and those kind of, gradiate into each other. And then purple gradiates back into red. And now this is going to be the same red as before. You can find it here, but an octave lighter or darker. So an octave is just a space of repetition into the exact same thing. So, and I'll tell you later kind of how that's working on a vibratory level. I'll give you another example with geometry. If you know sacred geometry at all, you probably know a little bit about the platonic solids. I would recommend looking it up just to understand kind of how those work, and to look a little bit into sacred geometry too. Spirit Science has a really good little video series on sacred geometry and a lot of really cool things. So the platonic solids are a group of shapes that all have the same angle in all of its corners, right? So an equilateral triangle, a square, um, and are the same length, sides, and the same angle in all the corners. So if we go through the progression of shapes, we start with one-dimensional shape, which is a point. It just has one dimension. It doesn't have any length or width. Actually, before that, there's 0 dimensions, and actually atoms have 0 dimensions, which just blows my mind. I read that in a holographic universe. Read that; it's awesome. Um, so yeah, atoms have no dimension because it's just the same singular atom repeating over and over again in everything, because it's all in the same place, but it's also everywhere. Still can't quite wrap my head around that one, but we're getting there. Anyways, so we've got this one-dimensional point, right? And then we go into the two-dimensional shapes as we progress, and those are going to be the ones you can draw on paper, right? So we've got the triangle, and then the square, and the pentagon. It goes up and up, adding size until we get around to the circle. And a circle is simply a two-dimensional point. So here we've got the same repetition of patterns that is the same thing, but now we've gone up an octave of dimension. So then from there, from the circle, we go into three-dimensional shapes, which would be the pyramid, the cube, the, what do you even call three-dimensional or pentagon? I don't know. So yeah, so then we progress up and up and up, and you're going to get to the circle, or sorry, the sphere. And a sphere is just a three-dimensional circle, which is just a two-dimensional point. So if you've ever seen the point within a circle, that's the God's head imagery, and that's how literally everything works. It is simply one spark of life that is fractaled out into everything else, expanding again and again and again, and every time you expand, you are simply the same thing again, because really, movement and growth, it's all kind of an illusion of just kind of this cycle of expansion, but also it stays in the same place. And this is such a hard thing to understand, but it's something that you'll start to, once you look into yourself and you notice the patterns and you take time to contemplate these things, you'll start to understand them for yourself. So my hope is only to be kind of the spark to begin somebody's new understanding, but that has to really come from yourself. And so yeah, but it's beautiful stuff how these patterns work. So let me play for you a little bit an octave, so you can start to kind of hear that. So let me talk for a second about sound octaves. So those are going to be now notes or pitches, and it goes in the same way. It's going to start on one pitch, and then it progresses through kind of a gradation, just like color of frequency, going from whatever we choose our original one to be. Say it's, the frequency of red, or the note D is going to be, if you're working on the factor 9 grid of frequencies for pitches, if you know anything about music, I would definitely recommend looking into sonic geometry, and even if you don't know anything about music, I didn't mean to say that like it's like condescending, but so we've got the factor 9 grid of frequency. That's how Pythagoras started to tune his pitches, and they're extremely mathematically and relative to each other in this beautiful just scale of resonance. So it's really, really cool. So if you start on the note D, which in this case is frequency 144. Actually, this is 288, an octave up from that. So that D is 288 hertz. And then if we go up an octave, it's going to be twice that, 288 times 2, which I can't do in my head that fast. So we're going to be, let me take my headphones out. So D and T. That's out of tune. Let me play them together so you can hear. So you can kind of hear it. Those are the exact same note. Like red is red, lighter red and darker red are essentially the same thing, but they're different somehow. And that, like, for a while just blew my mind, because I'm like, how can an octave be the same thing but they're different? And I just didn't understand it until I started thinking about the world through the idea of frequency. And so I started thinking about that. And what's going on is we've got this middle D here, which is moving at 144 hertz, which is a specific speed, right? Here it's going. And then an octave above that is going to be moving at twice that speed, so it's going to be 288. And so two of those rotations fit inside one of these rotations, so I can do it in this two-dimensional way so you can kind of see. We've got this, let's see. Oh, I wanted to draw it for you, but I can't find a pen. Anyways, so you've got like a two-dimensional, actually, I think I drew it somewhere. Blah, blah, yeah. I was talking about overtones. So we've got, this one is moving at whatever, 144, and this one's moving at 288, and so two of those fit into one of these, and then I didn't draw it super perfectly, but then if this was exactly an octave above that, this one would be moving twice as fast. So that segues in perfectly into understanding the major chord. So the major chord is derived from the major scale, which is supposedly Pythagoras developed that. Sure, it was, you know, kind of a collective type of deal. But Pythagoras is accredited with developing the major scale, and he started to measure mathematically the spaces between pitches. So he created like kind of a framework, because just like color, you know, there's no like, we haven't decided, okay, this is red and only this color can be red. You know, there's like all these different gradients of red. And sound works the same way. There's like all these little different gradients of how fast a sound wave is moving that will make it slightly higher or lower. But they started to develop kind of a framework of what notes fit into each other and resonated with each other. So that's where the major scale comes in. And it's a totally naturally occurring resonant relationship, which is just so, so cool. So the major the major scale is a set of notes that all have the most amount of resonances in between them in relationships. So in music, we call these spaces intervals. Word just escaped my mind. So an interval between two notes, some of them are more resonant than others. So if notes are like right next to each other and they don't quite fit, they don't quite fit in with each other, they're gonna kind of hit up against each other, and they don't mesh and they don't vibrate together. And they create kind of this dissonant sound. I had a video on consonance versus dissonance and kind of how resonance works, and you should look that one up because I explained that in that video. So some intervals resonate better with each other than others. And in the major scale, this is the most resonant combination of pitches. And it's so super beautiful. So let me do another example. So you've probably heard the major scale before, even if you don't think you have. Here's the major scale. And so that is just kind of what most of our melodies are based on, the happy sounding ones. You know, the sad sounding ones are going to be based on a minor scale. But most of our music is based on this major scale, Western music. A lot of different cultures use a whole lot of different scales with different, you know, different exact pitches, right? But I really, for a while, was like shunning, like, oh, I want to buck the system, and what are all these different tunings and blah, blah, blah. And then I kind of realized that people have spent so much time figuring this out, which notes are the most resonant with each other. And music theory is like this beautiful, intricate pulling apart of how this works. And I haven't actually taken any music theory classes yet, but I'm just about to. And so much of this understanding has come to me in this beautiful spiritual way, just through listening and experiencing. And I'm just so excited to kind of delve into how other people have started to pick this apart. So anyways, back to this idea of the major chord. So a chord is they skip up certain intervals because not all intervals are that resonant with each other. Like here is just like a major second, so that's two notes apart. If I'm going to play those two notes at the same time, they don't sound very good together. They don't sound horrible together, but there's like tension there. You know, you can kind of feel that they're not. But then we go into a major third, and our ears love major thirds. They're like, yay, happy matching. And so the major chord is three or two major thirds. My violin's not quite in tune. Yes, it is. Okay. So we go up the major scale, or the major chord. And here I am at the octave again. So it repeats again to the octave. The same kind of deal is happening. And so you can kind of hear those ones mesh up with each other in
so much better. And that's because on an energetic scale, they're mathematically related to each other. So we've got our original D hanging out here on its frequency, and each of those notes in the major chord are mathematically fit into the root of the chord, which is what it's all based on, kind of like the home note, which in this case is D because it's a D major chord. So we start on D, and then we go up in these very specific mathematical spaces from D. And so a third up from D, got B, F sharp, and that's a major third. A major third is our happy space. Major third. And so that is not going to be twice as fast, but it fits in these kind of fraction ways. So like notes that are like a third as fast, a fourth as fast, those all end up fitting into the whole in very mathematically perfect, happy little ways. And they're all resonating together in this kind of overall like river of happy resonant sound. My inner child's coming out because I'm getting so excited. So yeah, major chord, super cool stuff. And I can show you, if we talk about harmonics, because I think that's one other really good example of how this pattern is just, it naturally occurs. Like our resonance is based off of this pattern. And yeah, I'll just do this. So if I explain harmonics, it's going to be where I don't press down on the string, but I lightly touch on very mathematically precise points of the string. So halfway up the string exactly, I'm going to get the octave harmonic. So here's open D, and here's the octave up. I'm not pressing, I'm just stopping the vibration slightly at a certain point, and it makes the vibration twice as fast because I'm halfway up. Now if I go down into different fractions and I'm stopping it at other specific points, this doesn't happen on every single point. It only happens on like the third of the string and a quarter of the string and a fifth. Yeah, so it follows the same patterns of like the progression of platonic solids, where we're going through these fractions of the circle of these different degrees of like split into thirds, it's the triangle split into fourths, so all these same mathematical patterns are everywhere. So if we go down in how at what fraction of the string I'm stopping the vibration, we get the major chord again. Which is super duper cool. So, and that's because those fit mathematically into the greater vibration of D, which it's all based on. So these patterns and this way of understanding energy as kind of always a relationship, because nothing is isolated. We are all part of one great ocean of interconnected, interlaced energy, and it's all kind of, every time someone thinks thought or says something, or you get an idea, it's always part of a bigger picture. It's resonating something else. It's all like, you drop a stone in a pond and that's going to resonate outwards, and it goes, and it's starting to interact with all these other different flows of everything that's going on. So when you begin to get in tune with yourself, then you start to be able to tune into other things around you, and more things are going to start vibrating at the same level and just syncing up. And once you start syncing up with the bigger picture, everything happens when it's supposed to, and synchronicities get extremely more, and you start being able to tap into the greater flow of the energy that is you, that is all around you, that is supporting you, that is interacting with you. It's all just this beautiful process of mirroring and resonance and reflection and light and beautiful, beautiful stuff. So thank you. This was part 1. Now that this video is almost 20 minutes long, I'm really glad I did 2 parts. So if you'd like to check out the next part of this video, I'm going to talk about how these patterns, how you can apply them to yourself, and understanding how your light body works. Light body, sound body, energy body, it's all the same idea. And how you can kind of tune yourself to yourself,
crazy as it sounds, but so many of us are still fractured within us. We aren't quite in tune with ourselves, and you can't get in tune with anything else bigger until you're in tune with yourself. So, and this, yeah, it's beautiful. So, check out my next video. I'm going to keep talking about this. Favorite shit, super fun. Love you guys.